Hey guys, Brad from SimpleGuitar.com here, and welcome back to the Total Beginner series of videos. These videos are aimed at helping you if you have zero experience with guitar or with music. I'm trying to think of what the most basic questions are that we as guitar players and guitar teachers sometimes overlook, or we just assume everybody knows that because they're so simple. But these videos are designed to help you with those things to help answer any questions that you have. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna talk about how to strum chords, okay? Now there are a few different ways to do this. So we're gonna start at the beginning and then we're gonna go through how you strum different kinds of chords. So the first thing that we're gonna talk about though are open chords, because this is the most common type of chord that people will strum. There are different kinds of open chords. And fundamentally there are three basic kinds of open chords. There are 4-string chords, 5-string chords, and 6-string chords. And so that depends on how many strings within that chord you're actually going to strum. And you need to practice strumming all of those and being able to do it without looking and hitting the right strings at the same time. So for example, this G chord, your standard G chord, so this is just my second finger on the 3rd fret of my 6th string, my first finger on the 2nd fret of my 5th string, and then my 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of my 1st string. And the other 3 strings are open, so I'm not touching them at all. And I'm gonna strum all 6 strings. So my pick is gonna start by hitting down here. I'm gonna hit my 6th string and then strum through all 6 strings. Okay? Now, by doing that, when I do a downstroke like that, I want to hit all 6 strings. But if I'm playing a 5-string chord, like a C or an A, so here's a C chord. So that's my 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of my 5th string. My 2nd finger is on the 2nd fret of my 4th string. The 3rd string is open. And then my 1st finger is on the 1st fret of my 2nd string. And my 1st string is open. And I'm only gonna play 5 strings, okay? So I'm going to knot with my pick. I don't wanna hit my 6th string because I don't want that to ring out. It's actually part of the chord, so it doesn't sound terrible, but sometimes that'll sound really, really bad. So what I do, the cheat that I use is with my 3rd finger that's here on the 5th string, I let it touch that 6th string so it mutes. And then it doesn't matter. But when you're starting out, what you have to do is you have to place your pick on the 5th string, and then you're gonna strum down through all 5 strings. And you have to get comfortable doing that without looking, getting your pick on that 5th string and doing it while you're in the middle of a song. Okay? And that'll make life easier. So let's look at a 4-string chord. So if I play a D chord, this is gonna be my 4th string open, and I'm gonna put my 1st finger on the 2nd fret of my 3rd string, my 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of my 2nd string, and my 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of my 1st string. And I'm just gonna play those 4 strings. So my pick is gonna sit on my 4th string, and then I'm gonna strum down through all 4 strings. And that's a 4-string chord. F is also a 4-string chord. And you'll see more 4-string chords as you play along more. There are more that you can play. The most important thing with these chords is being able to, on purpose, hit 4 strings or 5 strings or 6 strings, depending on the chord that you're playing. Because if I have a 4-string chord and I play all 6 strings like this, then my 5th and 6th strings just make it sound like mud. And that's not cool. We don't want to do that. So you have to get comfortable practicing strumming just 4 strings. Okay, now let's back up and talk a little bit, because so far with these chords, all that we've been doing is doing a downstroke. So we're just strumming down. Okay. A lot of your picking motion is going to come from your elbow, and it'll come from your wrist as well. But when we're doing just downstrokes like this, it's really easy to just use your elbow, and that's fine. Okay? You can throw your wrist in there too. And we're gonna talk more about strumming with your wrist in a few minutes, okay? But with these same chords, with a 6-string chord, with a 5-string chord, and with a 4-string chord, we're not just gonna strum downstrokes the whole time, okay? So when we do upstrokes on these chords, what you're going to do is you are going to only pick 2 or 3 strings as you come up. And it doesn't matter how many strings are in that chord. So if I have a 6-string chord, I'm gonna strum down and hit all the strings. And then when I pick up, I'm gonna move my wrist and my elbow a little bit. So my pick is gonna move away from the guitar, just slightly away from the guitar. So I only hit 2 or 3 strings. Just like that, okay? So I'll go down and then I'll pick up just 2 or 3. If you pick all 6 strings, or if you do an upstroke with all 6 strings, it sounds like this. Now tell me the last time you heard that on the radio, right? Nobody does that. It sounds goofy. You want to make sure that you're doing all the strings with your downstroke and just 2 or 3 with your upstroke. And it just doesn't matter if you're doing a 6-string chord like this G, or if I do a 5-string chord for C, I'm only strumming 5 strings down, and then I'm picking 2 or 3 up. Or if I do a D, which is only 4 strings, when you're doing upstrokes, you only hit 2 or 3 strings generally, okay? And if you can get that down, that's gonna make your playing sound a lot better. Now let's talk about strumming with your wrist, because you're not only going to strum chords that are open chords like these, okay? Sometimes, especially if you're playing more rock and roll and punk rock and stuff like that and metal, you're gonna be playing a lot of power chords. And power chords are very, very simple and very effective. And I like to get people started on power chords as soon as possible. So with a standard power chord, you're using 2 or 3 fingers, okay? I'm just gonna do one here. I'm gonna put my first finger on the 5th fret of my 6th string, okay? And then I'm gonna take my 3rd finger and I'm gonna put it on the 7th fret of the 5th string, which is the next string up, okay? And then I'm only gonna play those 2 strings. That's all I wanna hear. So when I'm picking with such a small strum, I don't wanna pick other strings, otherwise it sounds like this. And that's not the sound that I want when I want to play power chords. So when I'm doing that, instead of using my whole elbow to do the strum, I'm going to use just my wrist, okay? So I'm gonna actually kind of plant the back of my hand back here towards the bridge of my guitar, okay? And that way I kind of have an anchor point where my hand can rotate and I can use my wrist in this motion to pick the strings like this. Okay, and so all that motion is just coming from my wrist, but you want to keep your wrist close to the guitar so that you have more of an anchor. Okay? So when picking with your wrist, this is something that a lot of people don't work on for a long time, but you can practice it right now. You can even just make a regular G chord, and you could practice just picking the low 2 strings. And you can move it around too if you didn't know that. It's pretty cool. So these are the basics of strumming. You got to make sure that you can strum 6 strings, 5 strings, 4 strings, and know that when you do an upstroke, you're only picking 2 or 3 strings, no matter if you're playing a 4 or 5 or 6 string chord, okay? And then you also need to practice strumming with just your wrist on a couple of strings. And if you can get that down, that's going to make your life a lot easier. So this is just to get you going with strumming with some of the very basics of it. So you're just strumming through strings and you're using your elbow and your wrist to do it, okay? But the key is making sure that you're hitting the right amount of strings. Don't hit extra strings. that will make it sound muddy. So I hope that helps you out with the very basics of strumming. If you have any other questions about this, leave a question down in the comments below and I will get to you and help you out with that. Now, if you haven't already, go to my website, simpleguitar.com/top10, and there I have a gift for you called the Top 10 Things to Learn on Guitar First. It's a free guide, and all you have to do is go download it, and it gives you the top 10 things that I found help you become a better guitar player a whole lot faster, and some of it is a little bit counterintuitive. Okay, so go download that guide for free, practice your strumming, have fun with that, and I will see you in the next video.